Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're joining me from in the world. Welcome, I'm Jack Tarlad. This is my ship, the Salt Pig. I swear it's a ship, it's not my living room at all, I promise you. Today we're going to be looking into a video. Why is that still playing? That shouldn't be playing. There we go, we'll stop that. Anyway, maybe we'll start again. Today we're going to be looking into a video that I watched this last week by a creator called Mentour Pilot, and he's I think he's a trainer for Ryanair. He does type rating check rides for and training for Boeing 737 pilots. So he knows what he's talking about when it comes to aviation. He's been a pilot for many years. And there's another creator called Tom Scott, and he's a British creator who he does videos on all sorts of things, you know, but Mentour Pilot is mainly aviation. He does like stories about aviation, like you know, aircraft accidents and situations that have happened and new things that are coming up in, you know, the aviation world. And Tom Scott does everything else. He does go and check both of them out. I've left a link in the description for you to go and see the video that I'm talking about. But we are going to I'm going to bring it up in a minute anyway. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at that video quickly, and then we're going to switch over to Flight Simulator, and we're going to. I wonder if those things are going to keep coming up. It shouldn't come up. Sorry, the tunes from the first title card keep coming up and playing. And they shouldn't, because I haven't got that source selected. So we might have to go through a few more of those. They'll just keep popping up. Nevertheless. So, let's go over to YouTube. And so I've got Mentour Pilot already loaded up here. And this is his channel here. And this video right here is a collaboration between Mentour Pilot and Tom Scott. And basically, he got Tom Scott to try and land, I think he's landing a Boeing 737, or he might be landing an Airbus. Oh yeah, it's the Boeing 737 MAX, I see it there. And so he does it first, piloting the aircraft by hand, whilst trying to listen to Mentour Pilot, you know, telling him how to fly the plane, basically. And then after he does that round, he does it by autopilot. And I kind of wanted to do the same here because it seemed like an interesting concept, because Tom Scott seemed to not know how to fly at all. Like he had no background in flying whatsoever. And he was able to land the plane via the auto land function. And he failed at landing by hand. Now, I am not a trained pilot at all, obviously. I'm not. But I love aviation. I love planes. I love the concept of flying. I love the prestige of being an airline pilot. I would absolutely love to be an airline pilot. But there's no real point of me trying to go for those things, because it costs an awful lot of money to become an airline pilot. Even though there are sponsorship schemes available, it would take an awful lot of money for me personally to get through the medicals, because I'm colorblind. And so I would have to go through several different types of color blindness tests and medicals in order to get to a point where they clear me to fly an airline an airplane of that sort of size, you know, jets. I might be able to sort of, you know, fly smaller, light fixed wing aircraft, but I would never ever be able to, you know, fly a jet. The only way that I would be able to fly a jet, I guess, is in the situation that they're trying to portray in this video, which is somehow you've gotten past the doors of the cockpit, which are always locked, so you would never ever ever get into the cockpit. And so we're going on the premise that for some reason both of the flight crew are incapacitated, and you've managed to get inside of the cockpit somehow, and now you're gonna talk to ATC, air traffic control, and you're gonna, you know, tell them your situation, and someone will be on the ground there, hopefully, like a trained pilot or someone like Mentour Pilot who's a typewriter. You would hope that they would be there to be able to sort of walk you through all the necessary steps of what's going to go on. And so that would be kind of the only way that I would get control of an aircraft like that, is in that kind of situation. However, because we've got Flight Simulator, it makes it much sort of easier. Okay, you know, there's a lot missing from Flight Simulator, don't get me wrong. You know, there's this one allows you to flick a few more buttons than the last one, you know, and it gives you a little bit more control over starting the aircraft up, but you don't have to start the aircraft up. You can have it already set up ready for you to go. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick sort of half-an-hour flight across the channel from Amsterdam to Birmingham. And we're going to see how it goes, because basically the concept is, I have loved aviation for so long. I've been studying flying for, I don't know, 2 decades, let's say. It's got to be at least 2 decades now. And so over time, as like the internet grew and you were able to get more things readily available online, I was able to sort of get my hands on things like the airline transport pilot's license, you know, documentation, the stuff that they would use to train for a proper airline, you know, and it gives you, like, the internet is kind of, loads of stuff has been leaked out into the public eye. And so you can download manuals for the Boeing 737 or certain Boeing 737s, and you know, when you've studied this kind of stuff, and like I said, I've had 2 decades to study this kind of stuff. Now, I've never been in an actual flight simulator where you've got all those sort of forces and it rocks side to side. I've only ever grown with the flight simulator sort of brand, and a few other games, obviously, which when you understand how flying works, hopefully if the game programmers have designed the game properly, you'll have those same sorts of physics. So this kind of technical flying helps you in the gamey sort of flying. And I'll show you a bit of that too in a second, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to fly as the Airbus, and then we're going to take the Tomcat for a spin, I think. So I'll just give you a quick sort of view of this Mentour Pilot video. I hope he doesn't strike me, but I'm gonna pause it in places anyway. Just need to set up the sound source, sorry. Yeah, there we go. Okie dokie. So hopefully you'll be able to...
A couple of years back, I did a video over on the Mentour Pilot channel where I explained how a passenger could potentially land the Boeing 737, providing that they had instruction from a trained pilot. Well, today we are going to take that to the test and see if that's actually possible. And
So Yeah, he's done a video on it previously, and it was him sitting in front of the camera, and he was in the cockpit, and he was pretending to be both roles. Basically, he was pretending to be the person on the ground and the person flying the plane, and he was just sort of walking you through the steps that might occur. I mean, if you were ever in that situation where you were having to take control of an aircraft and you're a civilian, your heart would be pounding, your mind would be racing, and it's not really the place for that. So I would imagine that the majority of people, if they ever got in control of an aircraft and an airplane, that they would fail the mission. Basically, you'd end up crashing somewhere. And it isn't so easy on Flight Simulator to actually fly the plane by hand, and without the autopilot. You've got to really know what you're doing and what to look for on the flight display. It's not as easy as just pulling back on the stick and away we go.
The passenger who's going to try this is going to be Tom Scott.
So Tom Scott, as I said, he's a British YouTuber, and
I want to say a special thank you
all
where you
sorts
have
of
gotten access to the cockpit in some
videos
fashion,
on
but
everything.
in reality, in an emergency like this, a passenger would never get access through the closed cockpit door. Okay,
As
Tom,
he said
are you
there,
with
you
me?
would never get access
Let's go
to
for it.
If you hold on to the steering yoke on your right-hand side, there is a button by the right thumb. Do you find it?
The one that says autopilot disengage.
The very same.
So this is the first bit. He's gonna get him to disengage the autopilot, and he's actually gonna manipulate the control surfaces himself.
Yes.
Shall I push it?
When you push it, you're going to have a terrifying siren going off, all right, telling you that it's just you and me now. And so
I'll show you that siren in a bit. We'll switch the autopilot off and then on again. It's easy to do in this Airbus on this game, but I don't know whether I'd trust doing that in a real life situation, just in case you couldn't get it to switch back on again.
press it once, and when that siren goes off, press it again to get rid of the siren.
That's the same.
Confirmed, we're on manual.
Okay, put your hands on both thrust levers, and then there's a button on your right thumb. Just press that as well. That will disconnect the auto throttle.
Now you see, that's confusing to me. Like, for the layman who doesn't fly planes, on some aircraft, those buttons on the side actually control the toga function, which is take off, go around. And so when you press those buttons, it doesn't disengage the autopilot, it puts it into takeoff mode, and so it will increase the thrust so you can make an exit maneuver away from the runway. So I've maybe, you know, like all different aircraft are, you know, completely different, but I've known, I think actually the Boeing 737 has a specific button near the thrust levers that you can actually press for toga. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. On this A320 Neo, I don't actually know if you can interact with the buttons on this, but I've got it set up to my controls anyway to cut the throttle. Anyway, stop rambling.
Confirmed, auto throttle disengaged.
Okay, perfect. Now we're going to concentrate more or less on what you see on your primary flight display. That's the screen that is straight in front of you. So what speed are you keeping at the moment?
224.
Okay, so as you can, we'll see this in a minute because I'm going to show it to you in the game anyway. This is the primary flight display. You've got your altitude on the right hand side. It says 15,000 there, and it must be right in the middle of that square. Anything up or, you know, above or lower than that, that is not, you know, that is not your altitude. What is in the black box there, that's your altitude. 15,000 feet they're at. And you can see that they're leveled off as well, because next to that is a gauge, and it's got like numbers from the top to the bottom going 6 to 1, and then the opposite side it's got it going 1 to 6, and then there's a line dead center in the middle. Well, if that was like above, if there was another line above that line, it would mean that they're gaining altitude, and the numbers point to how many thousand feet per second they're gaining altitude, or the opposite way, descending and losing altitude. And on the left hand side of the primary flight display, you've got, which is circled in red there, that's your indicated airspeed, and below that, right at the bottom, you can see that it says GS 237. And so there is a difference between the ground speed and the airspeed. The actual speed that you are traveling in relation to the ground can sometimes be very different from your airspeed, and that can depend on a lot of things, whether you've got a headwind or whether you've got like a tailwind, for example, or depending on how high you are, because once you go past a certain altitude, you have to stop calculating in indicated airspeed. You have to stop calculating in that, and then you will calculate in what's known as Mach, and 1 Mach is the speed of sound. So usually passenger airliners travel below the speed of sound, and somewhere around, I don't know, 70 something Mach or 0.7 Mach, thereabouts, depending on how high they are. And then at the bottom there, anyway, you can see you've got the sort of the direction. It's like a half rose, we'll say, but that's your coordinates. That's the course that you're going in relation to north, south, east, and west, with 0 being dead north, 90 being east, 180 being south, and 270 being to the west. And so you can figure out where in the world you are sort of pointing towards, I guess, if you know where you are. Anyway, onwards. Oh, and you can see at the top there as well, on the left hand side above the speed, it's got 224. I think that's the speed that they might have dialed into the autopilot. And you can see there as well, the mode control panel speed. That's what that stands for, MCP, mode control panel speed. So it looks like if it was in autopilot, that is what it would be in. And the LNAV is lateral navigation, and it's on altitude hold at the moment, which was keeping it at 15,000 feet, but now he's disengaged the autopilot and he's disengaged the auto throttle, and he's flying it by himself now.
I want you to bring back the thrust levers a little bit, like bring them back a little bit, and feel what happens to the aircraft when it does so. Feel that it's trying to pitch forward by itself. Can you feel that?
Yes, I can.
Pitch it forward, but not too much, just a couple of degrees. And you see on the horizon, you know, the attitude indicator, that you have a cross in front of you. Just bring it down a couple of degrees, but don't let the speed decrease too much, okay? Just keep the speed going around the speed that you have now.
Okay, so he was saying, look on the primary. He's not really explaining him very well there. He just says that you can see a cross in the middle of the flight display. Now, there are a lot of things in the middle of a flight display, a primary flight display, that you could interpret as being crossed over. Now, I'm colorblind, as I said, so I can't be a pilot. To me, it looks like a yellow cross, and I don't usually have problems with colors like yellow and orange. It's usually things like green and red, and it's not that bad for me. I understand colors, but in terms of flying, knowing whether something is a red light or a green light or an orange light is quite important. So yeah, like I said, it would be very difficult for me to become an airline pilot with my color blindness. But anyway, this cross I think that he's referring to is the flight director cross, and it's a yellow cross, and it has 2 lines that are perpendicular to one another, and depending on whether you've got to turn left or right, the the one line, the vertical line, will move left and right like that, and whether you've got to pull up or down, the horizontal line will move up and down. And there is a dot right in the middle of the, what's it? In fact, if we go back to the primary flight display that they had there. Right, yeah, so you can, okay, so on the Boeing 737, it looks like it's like a magenta color, or maybe it's a pink or something. So in the center of that is a dot, and that is you, basically. That is where your nose is pointing, that, and that's where you should be. And that dot should be perfectly in the center of the cross that you can see, that is perfectly dead center with it. And the autopilot always is following that flight director. That is the indicator that tells you where you should be pointing in relation to the flight plan. So let's skip back ahead.
So
again.
pitch forward a little bit.
When you say pitch forward, does that mean go down or go up?
Okay, so even just there, you can tell that he's got very, very little experience with flying, right? So, and I don't, you know, good for him to be able to get in this simulator, because I am so jealous of him. I would love to get in there and have a go on that, but you know, like I say, it costs money. But anyway, so he's got very little experience. I have all of the knowledge that it takes to be a pilot. I have none of the experience apart from being here, but you don't get the G-forces. And even if you bought one of those Microsoft force feedback controllers, you still wouldn't get the G-forces. You're not getting the pitching back. You're not getting the feel of, you know, the weight and the G-forces that you would actually feel. In fact, there's a moment when you come into land on the runway, and you have to be able to feel the airplane sort of stop falling as you flare. The whole point is to bring it down onto the runway at such a you know, as soft as possible. And so you're coming in at a certain speed, and when you get to close enough to the runway, you need to now bleed all of that airspeed off, while at the same time making a nice graceful transition from air to ground. And there is a G-force that you feel as you sink into your chair. When you pull back on the stick, you sort of sink into your chair, but it's like a mixture of the senses. You're looking out of the window as well, and you can feel this force, but you can see that you're also not descending anymore, and that's kind of what you want. You want to, and that's what I need, basically. In order to fly an aircraft properly, I would need to have that experience. And so I just wanted to kind of show you.
Go down. It means push your yoke away from you. So push it but very little. Remember.
I just wanted to show you in this video basically what it was about, and you know, the fact that he was very limited in experience. I want to press on so that we can actually get into the gaming, so that we can just, you know, take this plane out for a ride. Okay, being someone who knows something about aviation, how easy would it be for someone like me to do what he's doing, rather than having a complete noob at the controls? All right. So here we go. I might have to switch the audio source actually, so you can hear it. There we are. Lovely. Okay, here we go. So I've got my Xbox controller here that's been set up to work with flight simulator. You can see that the flight that I've chosen there is from Amsterdam to Birmingham. That's actually quite a regular flight between Amsterdam and Birmingham. I don't think they use that particular flight plan there. I have to use the arrivals and departures that are available to me in Flight Simulator, and there's no saying that those are the correct ones. Basically, they change all the time. They're always changing. Now, so basically we're going to be departing on the Dina 6X departure, and we're going to be taking a direct arrival into Birmingham on the RNAV runway 15 approach. I've got the flight conditions set to real world, live players, live traffic, so it'll be live weather as well. And yeah, let's just get straight into it, because it does take a little bit of a time to boot into the level itself. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, I am a smoker, so from time to time you will see me smoking. I did toy with like not doing it, but I don't like going that long without a fag. I enjoy it. What can I say? I enjoy smoking. Sorry. For a games company as big as Microsoft, the amount of time it takes to load these levels is inordinate. Just to load the game itself is absolutely inordinate. There's no need for it to be that long. Ladies. I'm glad to see we're still streaming anyway. Right. So we're going to be flying in the Airbus A320 Neo. We're sitting at a gate in Amsterdam Airport. We're going to go from cold and dark, which means that everything is switched off in the cockpit, and we are due to leave on the runway 18. I think it is 18 left, but I'm going to ask ATC for a different runway, which would be 18 center or 18C or 18C. It should be booting in any minute now. As you can see, the progress bar at the bottom takes its fucking time. Pratt & Whitney pure power engines. Nice. Someone mentioned, because I like to watch you know, like there's a glut of YouTubers at the moment who are going out to airports and just sitting on the, you know, in the viewing zones, and they're videotaping it, live streaming it for, you know, 6 and 7 hours at a time. So you got like a whole day of watching your favorite local airport, you know, and the flights coming and going. So there was one the other day I was watching. He's called Airport Action, and he does Birmingham Airport, which is where we're flying today. And it was so windy, like the planes coming in with the rocking everywhere, and there was this one little light aircraft, and he was dancing about above the runway. I thought he's going to have to go round at some point. He's going to have to go round, because it was such a long landing. But because it's such a light aircraft, it's not so bad. If you're in a big jet like this, then if you've got a long landing, usually you have to go around. And so, but he made it. Fair play to him. He definitely made it. It was a decent landing. He wobbled a bit as he tried to correct himself on the runway again. He put a little bit too much rudder, so he went over one side, and then he sort of snaked, but he got it straight again on the center line. Anyway, so here we go. Right. This is the cockpit of the A320. And so usually in any cockpit, you usually need to switch on the batteries. So we'll switch on the batteries there.
Delivery WT115 IFR to Birmingham, ready to copy.
WT115 is cleared to Birmingham Airport as filed. Takeoff runway 24 climb and maintain 8,000 feet.
Oh, they're telling us to
Departure
take
frequency
24.
is 119er decimal 055, squawk 4065.
Okay, so what I did there was I just switched on the batteries and the ground power was available, so I've clicked that on. I just need to... I've had to switch off the auto assist for now because I don't like them just going through the ATC.
WT115 cleared to Birmingham Airport as filed. Takeoff runway 24 climb and maintain 8,000 feet.
8,000 feet.
Departure on 119er
So what we
decimal
can do straight
055,
away
squawk
is we can
4065.
enter 8,000 feet into the...
WT115, read that correct. Contact ground on 121 decimal 705.
into the flight management computer or the autopilot. So gonna go through a few checks first, right? So before we do anything, we've switched on the battery, we've switched on the external power. We're now going to put on the APU fuel pump. We're going to switch on the APU master switch, and then we're going to start the APU, and we will switch the beacon light on. The beacon light is a warning to anyone on the ground so that they know that you're starting, you know, startup procedures, that there's an engine going to be switched on, or the APU's going on, or whatever. It's a warning to ground crew. And whilst we're waiting for that to come on, I'm going to switch on the wing lights, I'm going to switch on the nav and the logo lights, and we'll switch the nose lights on, and we'll put the landing lights into an sort of a standby state. The APU is now available. I'm going to switch on the seatbelt and smoking signs. So APU is available. I'm going to disconnect from the ground power, and we're going to switch the APU bleed on. You should now be able to hear a little bit of blowing going on, because that's sort of to simulate the air conditioning. Now you see there's a lot of things on this that we can't set. We can't set the cabin pressure or anything like that, but we don't, I guess for this, you know, for the purposes of being in a simulator, you don't really need to do that. We just check all the lights, make sure that they're bright enough, and turn them up to how we want them. We won't put our strobes on yet because it's a bit impolite, basically, to switch your strobes on whilst you're on the taxiway, because the strobe light is so bright that it can dazzle other pilots. So if you're sitting on a taxiway and you're waiting to turn left onto a taxiway, but the control tower has told you to hang on a second because, you know, there's another plane coming by, that plane comes by and, you know, photo flash in your face. It gives you stars in your eyes, so you don't usually switch on the strobes until you're at the runway and ready to take off. Okay, so I think I'm ready to ask for pushback. I don't know what it is with this game, but I was always under the impression that you didn't switch on the engines until you were pushed back. So I like to do it that way, and I'm going to say that I'm ready to
Skip all
taxi.
ground WT115 with Quebec ready to taxi IFR.
WT115 taxi to and hold short of runway 24 via taxiway Alpha 17 Alpha Alpha 12 Bravo Sierra 7 Sierra 7 Whiskey. Contact tower on 118.28 when ready.
Taxi to and hold short runway 24 using taxiway Alpha 17 Alpha Alpha 12 Bravo Sierra 7 Sierra 7 Whiskey WT115.
Now, I'm not ever going to remember all that, and that's another thing the pilots have to do. They have to know where the, you know, where they will have looked at a map of the airport, all of the taxiways. They would have probably, you know, already seen a route that they might take back, and then the ATC will tell them which way to go, basically. And there are markers on the side of the runway which tell you which taxiway you're on and what is the intersecting taxiway. So, but you've got to remember all of those numbers and letters and stuff, and of course in Flight Simulator you don't have to do that, which is nice. But also if I just take a look outside, you can see I've put the markers on so it shows me where to go anyway, so I don't have to remember any of that. So what I'll do now is I will ask ground services to give me a pushback.
Skip Hall Ground WT115 requesting pushback.
WT115 pushback request accepted.
It's a bit counterintuitive, but we want it to turn with its arse to the right hand side as we're facing it, but it's actually to the left. So I've just taken the parking brake off. You'll have to excuse me, my Xbox controller is having trouble connecting. Come on. I think it's trying to. Trust this to happen now. You see, it keeps vibrating as though it wants to connect, but then it doesn't connect. I do apologise for the technical difficulties, boys and girls, but it's being a pain in the backside, I'm afraid. Huh. Give me a second, boys and girls. Here we go. I'm gonna try and fix this for you. Yeah. Stop bleeping at me. I know. I don't know whether you can hear those system sounds. Don't even know whether you can hear me now. See if this works. No. No. Come on, you bleeder. What is going on? Ugh. I'm really gonna have to do it with this one. Here we go. Let's see if this is the final one. If this don't work. That's gotta work, surely. Oh, could it be the... I got it plugged into a USB hub. Ah, there we go. I think it was the USB hub needed resetting. I don't know. Right, so hopefully this will... We can continue now. Okay. There we go. He was having a little bit of trouble pushing me back because I didn't take off the parking brake after all. So, steer the
Skip all
aircraft to
ground
the left for me.
WT115
Christ, I'm sorry
requesting
about that,
pushback
boys
tug
and
to
girls.
steer the aircraft to the left.
What a technical difficulty to
WT115,
have.
your request has been transmitted to the operator.
And so I'm getting him to turn us the right way round, basically. I just want to be pointing in a way that we can get onto the taxiway. And the other thing is as well, you know, the reason why you don't switch on your engines is so that you don't suck people into the engines when you start them up and that, so, you know, or vehicles, you know what I mean? You don't suck children and small birds into the fucking thing as you're starting it up. Oh shit, stop. That's me
Skip all
talking, that
ground
is.
WT115 requesting the end of pushback.
See, this is why I shouldn't be a pilot.
WT115 request to end pushback received.
Alright, so we've got the air bleed on. We need to switch on the fuel pumps now. We need to hurry this up. Switch on the fuel pumps. Get down here. And we'll switch that to start. And we'll start up engine 2. And just for good measure, because I know it'll work anyway, we'll switch on engine 1 as well. And then we sort of monitor this section here. And we'll see these numbers start to rise, and then the engine temperature will start to rise as soon as it starts to kick in. I'm going to put the fuel management down here on this panel so it shows us our fuel. See, they're both starting to spool up now. Now on the mode control panel, or the autopilot, there's all these settings, and they all look absolutely, you know, mind-boggling, but they're really not. This one is for your speed, this one is for your heading, this one is for your altitude. Those are the main three that you need to think about when you're flying an aircraft, okay? Altitude, speed, and heading. And you can see down here now that we've got the engine spooling up. The engine temperature will equalize, and so will the N1 as it's known, and that's the percentage of, you know, thrust, I guess, the percentage of how much of the engine is being used. And we're mainly going to be looking at these two anyway. These are the two that we need to keep an eye on. And so we're actually ready to roll now. So that's what we're gonna do. So we'll bring the thruster just to about 34%, you know, just to give us a bit of a kick. Just to get us moving a little bit. You can see on the left hand side there at the bottom it says TAS 5 knots. Just going to bring the engine down a bit, you know, down to maybe 32. We use the rudders in this case to get onto the line that is on the taxiway. Now, as I said, my ground speed is not the same as my airspeed, depending on which way I'm facing, depending on which way the wind is blowing. It might turn out that my ground speed is quicker than my indicated airspeed. And so you can see that it says 15 knots there, or 16 knots, so let's have a look inside the cockpit. The ground speed is currently sitting at 4 knots, which means that we've got like a headwind ahead of us there. You can see that the ground speed is slowly creeping up a little bit because I've got it at 30% N1. So that's just enough to overcome the headwind that we've got in front of us right now. I wonder why it's taking us this way, if we should be taking off in the opposite direction. But you can see it says true airspeed there, 14 knots, 15 knots at the bottom left. Now, usually in an airport on a taxiway like this, the maximum speed is about 15 knots, unless you're crossing over a runway, and I think that it has to be a minimum of 20 knots. ground speed across a runway. And so we just take a little leisurely roll out, you know, we don't need to do much. We can see that our speed is at 8 knots ground speed. There's really not much to do at the moment. We've got everything running okay, you know, everything's sort of ready to go. I'm going to switch on the anti-ice now for when we get up there. Still going, and still got a little ways to go. We're at 10 knots now, ground speed, and the indicated airspeed, as you can see on the primary flight display down here, it's below what it should be, you know, what it will be to. I'm not explaining it properly. It's far below what the pitot can sort of pick up on. It doesn't really need to be displayed on there, because now you're looking at your ground speed on here. That's what you should be looking at. Well, you know what, we're in Flight Simulator, so I'm going to pick up the speed a bit. We don't have to stick to the law. And we want to get out to the runway. You know, this ain't no Air Force Proud 95 or anything like that. This is something far less prestigious. So we can break the rules on this channel. We don't have to be so anally retentive. Shout out to Air Force Proud 95. By the way, if you haven't seen his content, you should, because it's hilarious. I bet that plane we've just passed, if that's another player, they're thinking, holy crap, he's gunning for it. He is. There's no reason why I should be travelling this fast on an airport taxiway. They would have my ass in a sling. The FAA, is it? Or the JAA, the Joint Aviation Authority, and the Federal Aviation Authority. Now, as you can see, the wind keeps actually blowing my plane to the left. If I just let go of the rudders, it just wants to go to the left. That's not a dead zone problem with my controller. That's the wind. It's blowing my ting to pieces. So we've got a flight in front of us there, so we're gonna hold short. And then we're going to put the parking brake on, we're going to go back to clearance, and we're going to say we're ready to go. Request
Skip
takeoff
Tower
clearance.
WT115 at runway 24
Gonna do
ready
some
for
checks.
departure
Flight
IFR to
director
Birmingham.
on.
WT115, hold short runway 24. Traffic is
APU
generic
air
on the
bleed
runway.
off. APU off. Runway lights off. Landing lights on. Taxi to takeoff. I'm holding short.
Hold short
thank you.
runway 24 WT115.
Just doing a quick cross check of everything. Flaps to 1 in this case. You may not need to use flaps in certain situations of taking off, but I
line up and wait.
always like to do that.
Line up and wait WT115.
So now I'm going to switch the flight assistant on for the AI. Radio communications. They've given us clearance to line up and wait, so
KLM 1369er, contact Schiphol departure on 121.205. Good day. .205 for KLM 1369er. WT115 altimeter 29er.77, wind 128 at 10. Cleared for takeoff runway 24.
Cleared for takeoff runway 24 WT115.
did she say? It was altimeter 2977. 2977. Nice little cross check, strobes on. Everything is good, ready to go. Flaps 1. Let's roll. Here we go. So 50% first. Check everything's alright. Here we go then, let's go. For a speed of about 140 knots. 145 it looks like. That was a bit of a sharp takeoff.
WT115, contact Schiphol departure on 119.055. Good day.
Going to 119.055 WT115.
Now I'm flying this manually.
Schiphol departure WT115
If you look at the
is
primary
passing
flight
2,200 feet, climbing 8,000
You can
feet.
see that there's a cross that I'm trying to
Ascend
chase.
and maintain 2,000 feet. Expect vectors. Visual runway 24 approach. City 1150.
And so what I've got to try to do is roll the plane backwards and forwards. You know, left to right is what I mean. Keep the nose pitched at a certain angle. I've just got to keep that dot directly in the center of the cross.
City 1150. You are 16 miles north of Schiphol.
And now, really, I can switch on. I'll just bring the
Contact Schiphol
throttle down a
Tower
little
on
bit, and I'll switch on the auto
118.28.
throttle. I'll switch on the autopilot, and it'll take it from there. Like genuinely, it'll do what it needs to now, and that's it. It's in autopilot mode.
Turn left heading 150. Tower on 118.28, City 1150.
You can put the flaps up now as well. So we're going up to 8,000 feet first. They've cleared us up to 8,000 feet. We're gonna climb up to there. We're gonna go up to an altitude of 39,000 feet, and then as soon as we're up, it's pretty much coming down. That's how quick this flight is gonna be, about 30 minutes, something like that. And everything is managed by the computer. There is a flight computer down here, and you'll see these on most airplanes, most airline jets anyway.
WT115 climb and maintain 16,000 feet.
There we go, we've got clearance up to 16,000 now.
Climb and maintain 16,000 feet WT115.
And so you just pull on the knob basically, and it puts in the new altitude for you. And so you can see on the primary flight display now. I mentioned earlier that if there was a line above the line to the on the right hand side of this primary flight display there where the altitude is, there's a line pointing upwards now. You can see there's a number creeping up, 45, 46, 47. And that's how many feet per second, 1,000 feet.
Is at 9,300 feet, climbing 16,000 feet.
Sorry, yeah, that number in particular is hundreds of feet, so it's 5,000, for example. It's 5,500 is what I meant to say. So now it's at 6,500 feet a minute. Sorry, 3,500 feet a minute. And we've gone up past 10,000 feet now, which means that we can switch the landing lights off. All the other lights are still on. I think we can take the wing lights off as well, because we don't really need them on. Can't really change anything to do with you know, the cabin pressure or anything like that. It doesn't really give you much to do other than the basic things of flying and controlling the flight management computer. But anyway, yeah, most of them have these flight management computers here. And I would be able to enter a waypoint into here, for example, and then I'd click OK, yada yada, and then it would like change the flight plan, and it would take my computer, or it would take the plane to that location, to that waypoint, which is like a GPS waypoint, which there's a whole load of them, like all around the world, and there are so many of these waypoints I couldn't even, you know, even gander a guess at how many there are. But these computers know precisely where to take you in relation to where you are and where it is, and it will just take you there basically. You can set, in this one, you can set like the performance.
Skip all departure on 121.205. Good day.
And
WT115 climb and maintain flight level 240.
240, clear to 240.
Climb and maintain flight level 240 WT115.
Okay, so that's that done. Back down here. So the next phase, we're in climb. Christ almighty, shut up! You do nothing but talk. That's all you do is talk. Shut up. You can go into the next phase, which is the cruise, and it gives you information. Oh, God almighty.
KLM 1 tree, 69er Amsterdam Center altimeter, 29.74 continue as planned.
Blah, blah, blah. Right. And then the next phase after that is the destination, and we go into the approach. Later on I'll enter some values in here that will help with the landing, I guess, and the approach. Down here you've got like your this is not something that I'm doing either. I'm not, at the moment, I'm not setting any of the frequencies for the radio. As you fly over different areas, you go out of radar range for certain centers or certain radar stations, and so you have to continually update your radio frequencies, and they will hand you off. The ATC will always hand you off to the next one, and that's a curious thing. It's like, what if it's a situation like that, like, you know, the Tom Scott Mentour Pilot situation, where you've got an airliner that's you've declared a mayday, and they've got a trainer there, right? But it's like, surely there's going to be a point where you're going to get out of range. So what, are you going to bring them back and land them at an airport that's right near you as soon as possible? Or, I mean, like, what happens when it gets out of range, if that happens? Let's say it's like someone who doesn't know how to use the controls very well, and it takes them that long to even grasp the concept of it. So I don't know. It's a curious one. That is. Would they have another trainer in the next, you know, radar station, or how does that work exactly?
WT-115 climb and maintain flight level tree 60.
Oh yeah, so we're above
Climb
18,000
and maintain flight level tree
feet.
60 WT115.
We can actually put it on standard barometric pressure now, which is 29092. Climb and maintain 36,000 feet. So I mean, like, look, within this, yeah, within Flight Simulator, the ATC gives you a command and you enter it into the flight computer. You enter it into the autopilot. It's really, really easy. Now, I'm not saying that pilots have an easy job, because they certainly don't. They do things that I don't think I would be able to do, quite frankly. I'd love to be able to get to that level of mental gymnastics, but this takes a lot of concentration. It takes a lot of awareness, you know, almost like a pre-cognitive instinct, you know, that something's gonna happen, or the plane is reacting in a certain way, and it's only being in that situation on a constant basis would you ever get that experience. Only being and doing what they do would you get that foresight and that knowledge. So they don't have it easy at all, but flying a plane in Flight Simulator is relatively easy. Now, I mean, when I took off, it was a really sharp sort of lift off, and I was only pulling back a tiny little bit on the controller. Maybe when I've reset the controller just a moment ago, maybe it's recalibrated some of the sensitivities, I don't know, but it did feel like it was a bit jerky, so I'm going to have to be careful on the way down, I guess. But, yeah, I mean, usually what you would do is you would pull back nice and softly. When you get up to that takeoff speed, pulling back should gently start to lift you off the ground anyway. If you're not going fast enough and you start pulling back too soon, you're gonna hit the tail of the plane on the ground, and they call that a tail strike. So, oh, we can see where we are in relation to the world, I guess. If I put on this VFR flight map, you can see all the other people flying around me right now. Where we're heading, we're heading to Birmingham Airport, BHX, EGVB, just here, and we're going to come in on the runway 15 RNAV approach. But right now we're over the like the Channel, the North Sea, I guess. Yeah. A lot of people at Amsterdam, you can see, by the look of it. A lot of people flying around, actually. Let's see if you can see anyone. Yeah, there's one of them. There's someone flashing in the distance there. That's, oh, you can't see the VFR map. Jesus Christ. There we go. There's not much to look at outside because it's night time. But of course, anyway, we can see other players flying around when they're close enough. That's going to get in my way, that is the map. Oh, you can't see the cursor? 36,000 feet. What am I forgetting to do? They're on. Anti-ice is on. Landing lights are off. Oh, I guess I can let the passengers get up and have a piss now.
WT115 climb and maintain flight level 390.
Yeah, okay. 390.
Climb and maintain flight level 390 WT115.
And we'll set it at a 1,000 feet per minute climb rate because we're only 3,000. I've just switched the seatbelts off, so I'll give them a little bit of comfort. We can still climb, but for it not to feel like we're, you know, at a right angle like that. 1,400 should be fine, and we should see that reflected on the primary flight display there where it says 14. That's 1,400. And it's pointing
Magic Sun
upwards.
2245, contact London Center on 118.475. Good day.
And to the right of that,
WT115, contact London Center on 118.475. Good day.
yeah, alright, thank you.
118.475 for WT115. London Center WT115 is passing flight level 375, climbing flight level 390.
you see-
WT115 London Center, continue as planned.
If you were sitting in the cockpit and then all of a sudden it started banking like that and you felt the plane starting to tip over, you'd shit yourself.
1374, contact Amsterdam Center on
You'd absolutely shit yourself, but
119.175.
if you know what you're looking at, you can see that the plane is following the flight plan. And you can see that sort of little
London
map.
Center Magic Sun 2245 is passing flight level 210, descending 7,600 feet.
There's a little plane in the middle of it,
2245 London Center, continue as planned.
and there's a line that it's following.
119.175 for Ryanair 1374.
And so that's the flight plan in the computer. We can look over here. You see this one that I'm glowing up right now. We change that to plan, yeah, and it'll show us in relation to north, south, east, and west. If we turn it back a couple, it puts on a rose, which shows us our navigation sort of panel. So it shows us not necessarily in relation to north, south, east, and west, but in relation to our direction to north, south, east, and west.
London Center
And it's very much the same for the VOR map. And the ILS map is what we'll use when we are coming in
KLM 1033 London Center, continue as
to land
planned.
at Birmingham. But for now, we're going to keep it on arc. And of course, you can see over here as well, to the very left, we've got the engines and the fuel, which should be right in the middle of the screen now. Yeah, the engines and the fuel. Engines are at 63%. We've got like 1,200 pounds, I think that is, yeah. 1,200 pounds of fuel left, and 608 pounds of fuel. Oh, is that in kilograms? It's in kilograms. Even down here, you can see the outside temperature is, I think that's 56, minus 56 degrees, minus 30 degrees. I mean, you've got to understand we're, yeah, 39,000 feet in the air. I can put that back on managed now. But you see, we were up at 39,000 feet in no time at all. And soon enough, they'll be asking us to come back down again. And it's just simply a matter of listening to how high they want you to be, entering it into this computer, and it'll pretty much do what it's supposed to do. The things that people would probably get confused by would be like managing the flaps, or, you know, arming the auto brake, and we can do that now. Actually, I'm going to put a medium auto brake on. So what will happen is when it's time to land, the brakes will automatically engage as soon as we touch the ground. We can see the landing gear is up as well. It says LDG gear there. I mean, there's really not much to do right now until they give us some warnings. I haven't set up any failures to happen with the plane, so really there isn't much to do. And I would imagine that in this kind of situation where you've got to fly into an airport, there wouldn't be much for you to do apart from listen to the controller on the ground trying to help bring you in and what they call vectoring you into an airport. And I guess it's more a case the adrenaline pumping and the sort of fear of shit, what is gonna happen now? You know, am I really doing this? Am I really in control of this airplane? You know, how do I do it? You know, what do I press? If I press this button, will it blow the fucking plane up, or will we drop straight out the sky like a stone? What's gonna happen? And so it's relatively easy, and I guess maybe I would react differently under those conditions, but I don't know. I have fantasized about a situation like this, and you know, anytime I get on a plane, I'm ready for it.
Descend and maintain 6,000 feet. Expect ILS runway 22 approach via Abbott transition. Cleared to Abbott Magic Sun 2245. WT-115 descend and maintain flight level 260.
Descend and maintain flight level 260 WT-115.
We'll stick the seatbelt sign back on. You can see on the primary flight display now that the speed is sorry, not the speed, the vertical airspeed indicator has gone down to 2800 now, 2800. It's gonna go down to 3000 maybe, but I haven't got that set up here at the moment. That's what I did last time, was I set a vertical speed for us to climb at. If you do it in managed mode, it does it all by itself in relation to the plane speed and the engines, and it puts it all into consideration. You remember what I was saying earlier about the relationship with ground speed and airspeed? If you look on the map side over on the right here, where the little plane is and the little line, the numbers around the rows, up in the top left corner of that little screen, you can see it says GS399 currently, and then it's got a true airspeed of 418. But on your left-hand side, all the way over where the primary flight display is, you can see that it says 245. That's where we're flying at currently, or thereabouts, 245. Now, why is that? Why are we flying at an airspeed of 245 when our ground speed is like... And it's because the air is thinner. So there is there's not as much air going over the pitot as we're flying through the air, as we're flying through it. So the pitot, by the way, is the little sensor that detects airspeed. If that freezes over, then it kind of reacts more like the altimeter, and you'll notice that the airspeed will go up and down with your altitude. Anyway, so the pitot is currently experiencing 240 knots over its tip, ladies, and whereas our relative speed to the ground is still far, far, far higher than that. Although it is going down now, of course it would, because we're also pitching down at an angle now to the ground. So we're no longer going straight ahead. We're coming down at an angle, going at the same airspeed, but going down at an angle, so it causes the actual ground speed to shorten a little bit. So even going down at
Maintain 10,000 feet.
2,800 feet a minute, we're still not, you know, we've come down nearly 10,000 feet, I guess. So it seems like a long time, but it's actually such a really short time. 2,000, you know, 3,000 feet a minute, you ain't got long before you're on the ground. And there's not much difference between 5,000 and 0, especially at those speeds. And usually you'll come into an airport at about, you know, a descent rate of about 800 feet a minute, 900 feet a minute maybe in this, is what we're going to get. Umbag. That's the name of this waypoint, Umbag. Here we go, we're coming up on 26,000 feet now. So it'll start as soon as this gets past 27,000. This will dramatically change, and I think it's just something to do with the programming of Flight Simulator. See, the engines are spooling up and it's pulling up the nose a little bit, and there's no need for it to do that. That's a bit janky, that is, but it is slowing down anyway. But there's no need for it to do it that much. Look at that, it like almost stops the plane, and then you've still got to go down another 500 feet and it dips the nose down again. It's like, that's a bit janky, that is. I don't think an airplane would, an actual flight management computer would react like that. Maybe it would, I don't know, but it just seems, that seems a bit, you know, uppy downy and uncomfortable for the passengers. And another thing that is sort of like a generic thing that happens in Flight Simulator is if you are approaching your altitude that ATC have given you, if they're ready to clear you for the next level change, it will happen within 250 feet of the altitude that you're, so if it's higher, then it will be 750, if it's lower, then it'll be 250. And that's when they will interact with you and tell you to go down to the next level. So they're obviously not ready to clear us down to another level yet, because it would have happened already within 250 feet of what they'd cleared us to previously. Well, we're going to be landing soon anyway. Oh, isn't it exciting? And then we'll go for a quick fly around in the Tomcat.
WT-115 descend and maintain flight level 200.
Descend and maintain flight level 200 WT-115.
I mean, there's a lot of different knobs and things you can flick and switch in here. I can switch some, like a light on so that we can see the whole cockpit.
Magic Sun 2245, contact approach on 13.2.05.
I can switch that one off, and I can sort of independently control some of the lights. Make it a little bit brighter in the cockpit there, you know. It doesn't really let me do much.
Magic Sun 2245.
Put the floodlight on over the center panel there. It just doesn't really allow you to do much. It allows you to start the plane up, and even then it's a bit janky, because I I put the fuel pump on for the APU just because that's what you might do if you were a pilot, but you don't actually have to do that in this game to start the APU. So I don't know. Like I say, it's not entirely realistic, and I'm not saying that what I'm doing here is any easier than what Tom Scott went through. But I've been playing this game for plenty of time now, and the majority of other flight simulators seem to go by the same.
WT115 traffic is 11 o'clock, 4 miles at flight level 255 generic. Report them in sight.
Yeah, there they are.
WT115 have the generic in sight.
There they are. Bye. Have a great night. We're 20,000 feet now. So if they're ready to clear us down again, they'll do it in the next 50 feet. Not got far to go now. Should be there in a few minutes. And so I have barely touched the controls. I've not needed to do any of the control surfaces at all. I've not had to hold anything in my hand. I've not had to pitch left and right. All I've had to do is twist a few knobs. And now, so in this game, what would usually happen in the real world is you would set up the radios for an ILS approach into an airport, and the ILS approach it's basically a radio marker that you can tune the radio into, the navigation radio, and it gives you the glide slope and the sort of center line of the runway. And what you have to do is you have to point your aircraft so that the center line, it'll go from left to right depending on how far over to the left or how far over to the right you are, and you have to correct it so that it stays nice and perfectly dead center like that. And there's also a little diamond, well, there's one at the bottom of the flight display, and there's one on the right hand side of the flight display as well. So the one on the right of the flight display is the approach angle, or the glide slope, and you've got to keep that diamond right in the center. You've got to keep both diamonds right in the center, and that can be very, very tricky for the unseasoned pilot to be able to do. And I'm certainly no expert at it, and that's why I let the flight computer do it. But there's only so far that you can go using the flight computer. But I'm going to show you in this that you can put it down without needing to really touch the flight controls apart from the flare at the end. So you just need to, all you'd need to do is pull the throttle back, and you would then do your little flare, and then at the end you've got to sort of control the aircraft so that it stays on the runway. And you've got to use the rudder pedals like that to sort of steer the aircraft on the runway, and you're using your toes as brakes. So the pedals, they sort of work in that fashion. They push backwards and forwards like left and right, but both of them independently also push in a rocking motion like that, and that is to put the brakes on, and that is to steer the rudder.
Janex 678, you are 24 miles southeast. Descend and maintain 3,000 feet. Expect ILS runway 27 approach via Pigot transition. Cleared to Pigot.
Pigot. What a name. Give me a second.
Descend and maintain 8,000 feet. Expect ILS runway 27 approach via Pigot transition. Cleared to Pigot Janex 678.
pilot has left the flight deck. If you are thinking about becoming an airline pilot, please don't leave the flight deck unless you really need to. So not far to go now.
Janex 678, contact East Midlands approach on 13.18. Good day.
Been a busy night for the air traffic control, I can
Going to 13
say that.
4.18 Janex 678. Shamrock Niner Tree 7, contact Manchester Center on 118.775. Good day.
So like I've said, it's relatively easy to fly a plane if you have some knowledge of what the control surfaces are there for, what they're going to do when you interact with them. And if you have all of that in your head, using the autopilot in conjunction with that, it gives you a little bit more, like, knowing, how do I explain it? Like, for the layman flying an airplane, they might think, you know, oh yeah, well you pull back on the stick and you go up and you push forward and you go down.
You are 41
But
miles east.
there is
Descend and maintain 12,000 feet. Expect vectors RNAV runway 15 approach. WT-115 descend and maintain 3,200 feet.
Descend and maintain 3,200 feet. Expect vectors RNAV runway 15 approach WT-115.
Sorry, I'm just having to concentrate here. So they've asked me to go down to 3,200. I'm just listening to the engine spooling down, and I'm watching our altitude decrease. I just wanted to make sure that that was happening. It's saying that the throttle is at idle. Okay. We will be transitioning soon, so through 18,000, so we might put the air pressure back on to QNH. We don't need to do anything else yet. We don't really need to configure. We don't need to configure the aircraft.
740 tree, you are 2 miles southeast. Descend and maintain 3,000 feet. Expect ILS runway 27 approach via picket transition. Cleared to picket.
Now, one of the things that would confuse people, like I said, is the flaps, etc.
Descend and maintain 3,000 feet.
Actually
Expect
putting
ILS
the
runway
aircraft
27
into a
approach
state where
via
it
picket
can land.
transition. Cleared to picket 2A air and hashtag 91. 52
Because
and hashtag 93.
So right now we're still going
Air Canada 868, you are 60 miles northwest.
301 knots or 300 knots.
Speed not above 220 knots. Expect ILS runway 27 right approach via Bravo November transition. Cleared to Bravo November.
Yeah, so in relation to the ground, we're still going fucking hell. Oh my god.
Not above 220 knots. Expect ILS runway 27 right approach via Bravo November transition. Cleared to Bravo November Air Canada 868.
Shut the fuck up! Anyway, 300 knots in comparison to the ground is quite some speed, so we're going to have to bring that back at some point on our arrival into Birmingham. And we will use the flaps to do that with this aircraft, because every time you put the flaps to the sort of next stage of where they're supposed to be, the flight management computer knows to bring the throttles back so that it never goes over what is known as the overspeed speed. And you can go over speed even without the flaps. So if you go over the operational speed of the aircraft itself, you will get an overspeed warning. But if you've got flaps out and you're going over the sort of acceptable limits for those flaps in terms of airspeed, then it will give you an overspeed warning. But in managed mode, it usually brings it back for you.
WT115, contact Birmingham approach on 131.005.
Lovely.
Good day.
131.005 WT115. Birmingham approach WT115 is passing 11,700 feet, descending 3,200 feet.
WT115, Birmingham approach altimeter 29.61, continue as planned.
So they're constantly updating us with the air pressure 29.61, so I've changed that there now so that it matches the air pressure on the ground, I guess. So we don't crash into the ground when we come into land, thinking that the runway is further away or closer. So configuring the aircraft. Under sort of normal circumstances, I guess we would be controlling the speed ourselves. Now, the flight management computer already knows. Oh, actually, something we've got to do is switch on landing lights because we just went past 10,000. And our speed has changed also, so our new managed speed has changed, and you can see down there in the magenta, I think it is, that's where our new speed is, and it looks like it's about 190 knots. And so our speed is coming down, and that also means that our vertical airspeed has reduced as well, so that the natural forces of the air can slow the plane down. And then as soon as we reach that speed, it will most likely start to go down quicker again. So you can see that it's getting closer and closer. And we're still in descent mode. And we're going down to 3,200 feet.
WT115, please expedite your descent 3,200 feet.
Shut up your face. Okay? It's going down. Shut up. Tell you what we'll do is we'll just put a little bit of speed brake on, and that'll make us go down a little bit quicker. Not entirely sure that they should be used in that way, but it's worked. You will often see the speed brakes being used in a landing just after they touch down. You'll see the flaps on the tops of the wings sort of fly up, and that's what they call the spoiler or the air brake. And you know, it creates drag and it slows you down more. And another thing, when I land, what you'll probably hear is just as I get over the runway, I'll cut the engines and switch the autopilot off, and the engines will be dead, and as soon as we touch down, I will put the engines into reverse thrust mode, which will also help slow the airplane down. Right, getting close now. So the airspeed has come down to 190 knots, So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the flaps into position 1, take the air brake off, and then I'm going to put the flaps down into the first position. You see on the left hand side of where the speed marker is now, there's a few red dots. If we go above that speed, that is the sort of acceptable limits for the flaps at 1. So if we go over that, we'll get the overspeed warning, but we don't need to worry about that right now. Towards the end of the flight, when we're actually coming into land, I'm going to control the speed myself because the Flight Simulator tends to put the manage mode into too slow of a landing speed, so I like to manage it a little bit myself. I've also switched the terrain on the computer so that we can see where the terrain is, and we're following this flight plan here that we can see. And basically the computer is doing all of this. We don't really need to do anything. All we need to think about is, you know, things like what comes next. What's the procedure, you know, you would constantly be looking at this top panel. You know, you would constantly be like doing a cross check to make sure things are okay up there. You do a cross check down here as well, making sure that everything is fine. You're constantly scanning.
WT115, you are 16 miles north of Birmingham. Maintain present heading and altitude. Contact Birmingham Tower on 118.305.
Maintain present heading and altitude. Tower on 118.305, WT115.
She doesn't sound like a Brummie.
Birmingham Tower, WT115, 16 miles north inbound, RNAV runway 15 approach.
WT115, Birmingham Tower. Altimeter 29.61, wind 152 at 4. Cleared RNAV runway 15 approach.
He doesn't sound like a Brummie either.
Cleared RNAV runway 15 approach, WT115.
Brummies are people from Birmingham, if you didn't know. I tell you something else, Flight Simulator as well, we're not going around. I don't care if you tell me to go around, we're not going around. This is for demonstration purposes only, and we're gonna put the fucking plane on the ground today, okay? No messing around. Just get her done, because I've got other things that I want to focus on. So here we go, we're making our bank now. We're coming in on the ILS approach. And what I'm going to do in a minute is I'm going to turn on the ILS management computer, and I'm going to put it into approach mode. And so I'm going to switch this button on here and this button on here. And as soon as I do that, we'll be able to actually see the diamonds on the primary flight display. As you can see, it's constantly the flight computer is constantly keeping that cross perfectly in the center of that, you know, the dot there. You can see there's a little diamond down there, and that's gonna be kind of the same as the diamond that we're gonna be using for the ILS approach, but we don't have to worry about that right now. Switch on the ILS computer and see if we've got any contact with the glide slope or anything yet. Looks like we might have. Maybe. So you can see that it changed when I switched on the ILS computer. It changes the flight display. That's supposed to happen, so don't worry. We're still going quite fast. We're still going 197 knots ground speed. And here we go. I think we're turning on to final approach now.
Birmingham Tower Ryanair 672 is going missed.
Oh dear.
Ryanair 672, contact Birmingham approach on 123.908. Good day.
Is that to go round? What a shame.
Going to 123.908 Ryanair 672.
We should start seeing the runway coming into view in just a second. There it is, look. So I'm going to turn off the map because we don't need to see that and I need to see things. So we need to now set up for landing. Now, you know, you might a proper pilot might have done a few things a little bit sooner than this, but I ain't a proper pilot, so here we go. I'm going to switch the approach computer on, or the approach mode, I should say. I'm going to do a couple of things for the cross check. Landing lights are on, seatbelt sign is on, auto brake is armed, speed brake is armed. And so I think it might be having a little bit of a delay.
2,500.
Thank you. I'm actually going to put full flaps on now.
Overspeed.
Yeah, I know, don't worry, the speed's going to drop dramatically in a second. I'm actually going to set the speed at 140 knots. And as you can see, the computer has got complete control of this landing now. Okay? You can see on the primary flight display down here.
WT115, wind calm, cleared to land runway 15.
And it's trying to follow the glide slope.
Cleared to land runway 15, WT115.
Wind's calm. Okay, nice. And so here we go. We're coming into land now. We've got flaps at full. We're configured to land. The speed is constant at 140. It looks like we're right on the glide slope. We are gear down. Looks like we might be crabbing a little bit, which means that we sort of there might be a slight crosswind and we're flying at a sort of angle to the runway but coming in straight. They call it crabbing because it looks like the airplane's coming in on its side. So we're getting closer and closer to the runway now. It does look like it's a little bit off to the side. Here we go. Got to take into account the sensitivity of the controller as well.
500.
I always seem to have problems with the lag as soon as I'm coming into an airport. You can hear the ground proximity warnings now calling out the distance away from the floor.
300.
We're just coming over the Varsi now, which is the
200.
lights at the front of the runway there. And you can see the PAPI is saying that we're too high, which is the four red lights on the side there.
100. 60. 50. 40.
So I'm bleeding off some speed here.
30. 20. Retard.
Whoa. Now I've just put the engines into reverse, got the auto brake on, we're past 60 knots, so
WT115, turn next taxiway.
release the reverse thrust. Sorry, I'm trying to think of a few things at the moment. Which way did we come in? Oh yeah, runway 15, so I've got to go off to the left. So I'm still rolling on the runway at the moment. I've got my engines at 45. I want to keep a speed of about 40 knots, just keeping it rolling on the runway. So now I've cut the throttle again,
exit runway when able.
and I'm braking, coming down to 23, 20 knots, 15 knots now. Just coming off the runway.
WT115, contact ground on 121.805.
I'm going to come to a full stop now that they've told us to go to
121.805
ground.
for
I'm going
WT115.
to configure the aircraft by putting the flaps back up. I'm going to turn on the taxi lights. I'm going to turn off the landing lights. I'm going to switch the strobe off. And we're all ready to roll back to the gates. So we're going to ask Birmingham Ground now to taxi us to the gates.
Birmingham Ground WT115 taxi to the gate.
WT115 taxi to gate 5 for Charlie, the taxiway Tango, 2 Delta 1 Delta Delta 2 Delta Tree, Delta 4 Victor 1 Victor.
Now that landing was not smooth
Taxiing
by
to gate
any
5 for
stretch
Charlie, the
of the
taxiway
imagination.
Tango, 2 Delta 1
It's,
Delta Delta 2
I
Delta 3 Delta
pulled
4
up
Victor
too
1
early
Victor
and I was at
WT115.
40 feet and I was still going along and I bled off far too much speed, and then I pointed the nose down again to try and sort of gain a little bit more speed and bring us down quicker, and then I started wobbling because I needed to flare again, but I didn't have the airspeed. That might have actually put the wheels through the wing of the aircraft. So anyway, we're gonna taxi back to the gates now, and we'll do it like we did before. We're not gonna worry really about how fast we're going. Just kind of want to get back there. Welcome to Birmingham, everybody. Don't have a dude here to guide us in by the look of it. There's usually a guy with some some fluorescent cones and they guide you into place. Guess I'll do it by myself. Finish myself off, shall I? I'll do right there, I think. Maybe a little bit more. There you go. And so as you can see, the in the game, the automatic thing that happens is that it will attach to your airplane, and so when we go inside we can see that they're attaching it to the airplane now. And that's the proximity warning, or the master caution warning, I should say. Just switch that off like that. And so really the plane is down on the ground, it's back at the gate. We switch the engines off. And there we go, it's done. I would do a few things after all the passengers got off. I'd, you know, let them get out of their chairs, obviously. Don't need any of the lights to be on. After they've gone, obviously, none of the lights need to be on. Just switch everything off. Things sound dead silent now, isn't it? Everything's so quiet. You turn off the batteries, and that's it. It's done. So can someone who has knowledge of flying an aircraft land a plane? Yeah, probably. Do you know what, Arcasul, if you're watching now or later, I've made it, dude. I've got girlies in the chat. I didn't even realize I got hot girls in my area. What you got to say, girls? Oh, it was held for review anyway. So you guys never got to see it. But I've made it. I've made it. I've got the sex bots. Oh yeah. Anyway. So can a civilian who knows how to land a plane? I guess we'll have to find out if I go in a simulator. And so I kind of challenge Mentour Pilot, you know. You did it with someone who knows nothing about flying planes. Let's try and do it with someone who does know something about flying planes. Who isn't necessarily qualified. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to take a quick intermission. And I will be back in a couple of minutes. Stick around and we're going to take the Tomcat out for a fly. I'll be back very, very shortly. Well, here we go then. So, thank you for waiting around. Gonna take the Tomcat out for a fly. Go back to the main menu. Yes, come on, do this. You are do this for me now, yes? Okie dokie, here we go. So, where shall we go? Somewhere where it's light. Somewhere where there's actual light in the world. San Francisco? No? San Diego? LAX. Let's go there. Tomcat. Just max it out with fuel so we can fly around for a bit, but as soon as it's dead, and then that's it, I'm done. Right, let's do this. Let's take the Tomcat out for a fly, and you'll see now. What I mean by having that knowledge in your head. It sort of allows you to play, you know, ordinary sort of combat flight simulator games and stuff like that much easier, because this Tomcat isn't easy to fly. It goes super fast and it has things that you have to think of, like, you know, G-forces and you passing out and stuff like that. Well, at least I had someone in the chat this stream. The sexy girls, even though the chat couldn't see it because it was held for review. I got the sex bots, I've made it as a streamer. Arcus, you're gonna be so proud. Ah, now that's weird. So it turns out that even though YouTube hold the comments for review, they still show up in my widget overlay for the chat replay. That's peculiar. Well done anyway, 69 girls XYZ. You got onto my chat window. Could you subscribe as well whilst you're there? That'd be great. Thanks. Click the like as well whilst you're here. Right. It takes so long. Why does it have to take so long? It shouldn't have to take this long.
Los Angeles Tower, WT115 ready at runway 25 right, straight out departure.
Here we go then. I might actually have to turn that down because you might not be able to hear me. I'll turn that down a bit. And I think we'll switch the assistant up. Come on, you piece of shit! Because this is going to get loud, this is. Hi! It's like them afterburners. buzz the airfield a little bit. Should be passing through the sound barrier anytime soon. You'll see the sonic boom sort of form over the wings. There it is. So that's the sound barrier, that is. And you'll see it again as we slow down when we come out of the sound barrier now, because I'm going up. And that was close because we nearly hit the water there. Going up and over. Scare the shit out of some incoming airplanes. There we go, back through the sound barrier again. Shut your fucking mouth. I don't give a shit about your last transmission. Are you going to keep bitching and moaning until I press the button? Is that it? I wonder what it's like for the people on the other side of that, like listening to me screaming over the top of them. Let's deal with this ATC, because otherwise we're just going to keep moaning until I answer them.
Los Angeles Tower WT 115 frequency change.
See, he's fading into unconsciousness because you're pulling some heavy G's. What I try to do is I try to keep the arse end, you know, between the two afterburners. I try to keep that in line with whatever it is that I'm sort of trying to aim for. And that way, I know I'll always sort of line up just on top of it. Just like that. Badoosh! See, it's relatively quite easy when you've got the know-how, but I mean, like, if you... And sorry, the practice as well. If you didn't have the practice and you didn't have the know-how, maybe this wouldn't be so easy for you to fly. What the hey now? No, I didn't. No, I didn't. What? Yeah, I can replay that back later. Fuck you, Microsoft, and your janky fucking game. You know what that is? That's a sign for me that he wants me to piss off. Wants me to leave it alone. Maybe I will. Might be a case of my internet's being a bit slow at the moment. I wonder if I'm still broadcasting. I'm actually looking at the replay right now. Looking at the replay. No, it's going to be ages before that comes through. I'm not going to bother. But nevertheless, there you go. It's easy to fly around in an airplane, I guess, if you're on Flight Simulator. Could a civilian do it? Doubtful. Could a civilian who knows about flying do it? Possibly. I mean, Tom Scott proved that any civilian without any knowledge can do it in auto land mode with the, you know, with the autopilot on, but I guess that would mean it would be even more of a success for someone who had some kind of knowledge. Anyway, I guess that's where we're going to leave it for this session. Can it happen? Yes, of course it can happen. Is it likely to happen? No, of course not. Because you're never, ever, ever going to get past the doors of the cockpit. There's literally a button that they press in the cockpit that locks the doors, and there's like a button to activate the camera at the door. You know, there's just no way of getting into that cockpit unless you've got like a crowbar, or unless they release it, I guess. There might be something that the cabin crew know about, like a secret little switch that allows them to get access in the very dire emergency need of having to do that. But I guess you need to have some very, very good reason for doing that. I don't know. I'm not an expert on these things. But anyway, challenge to Mentour Pilot. If you want to give that a try, I don't mind coming up to the test center and having a go in the flight simulator, and we'll see if I can land the plane single-handedly without your help. Yeah, and I guess we'll leave it there. I might be streaming a little bit later, ladies and gentlemen. I've got a few things that I need to get done in the meantime. And so, yeah, thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching. If you did like my content, then please like, comment, and subscribe. If you didn't like my content, then please like, comment, and subscribe. And I guess until the next time I see you, thanks again, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.